The first sound that cut through the Christmas night wasn't laughter or music. It was the low purr of an engine, sleek, expensive, smug in the way only a brand new machine can be. From the kitchen window, Dorothy Williams watched the silver BMW roll into her driveway, its headlights slicing across the snow. A bow the size of a small child glittered on its hood, red as a wound. Her son leapt out first. Marcus, 35, cheeks flushed from excitement, hair dusted with snow, looking for all the world like a boy again. He wasn't carrying gifts or food or even his children. He was carrying keys. He pressed them into Linda's manicured hands with the flourish of a magician revealing the final trick. "Merry Christmas, Mom," he said, grinning at the woman who had joined their family less than a year ago. Dorothy's fingers curled against the counter. "Mom." "Not Dorothy. Not Mrs. Williams." "Mom." Linda gasped, touching her chest as if she'd been given the moon. Ashley, her daughter-in-law, clapped like a game show audience, bouncing with delight. Their voices tangled into a chorus of praise, drowning out the silence of Dorothy's own kitchen. She turned her eyes to the table behind her, plates stacked high from the feast she had cooked, ham glazed, rolls browned perfectly, casserole bubbling. Her hands still stung from hours of work, the smell of garlic and cinnamon clinging to her skin. All of it prepared while Marcus wrapped a bow around another woman's luxury car. On the counter beside her, her gift waited. A small plastic piggy bank, bright pink and hollow except for 3 limp bills rattling inside. Symbolic, Marcus had said when he'd presented it earlier. "Because you're always saving." Symbolic. That word echoed now, louder than the car's engine, louder than Ashley's squeals. Through the frosted glass she saw Linda stroke the leather seats, Marcus laughing as he described horsepower she couldn't care less about. Snowflakes swirled in the air like confetti, a celebration she had not been invited to. Dorothy stood alone in her kitchen, heart pressing hard against her ribs. 35 years of sacrifice, of scraped knees and tuition payments, of late shifts and early mornings, summed up in 3 crumpled dollars and a piggy bank that looked like a toy. The BMW purred again, ready to be shown off. Dorothy pressed her palm flat against the cold windowpane, watching her family drive away without her. And in that silence, something in her began to sharpen. The house felt cavernous once the BMW's taillights vanished into the dark. Dorothy let the curtain fall back into place and turned to face the wreckage of Christmas dinner. Plates rimmed with congealed gravy, glasses smeared with fingerprints, crumbs trailing across the tablecloth she had ironed that morning. The silence pressed in, broken only by the slow tick of the grandfather clock Tom had polished every Sunday. Her late husband would have hated this evening. He would have filled the table with his booming laugh, poured her a glass of wine, reminded Marcus where loyalty belonged. But Tom wasn't here, and Dorothy had become a placeholder in her own family's story. She lowered herself into his recliner, the leather creaking softly. On the side table sat the pink piggy bank, squat and smiling, its painted eyes mocking her. 3 bills rattled inside when she picked it up, 3 reminders of how invisible she had become. She could still hear Marcus's voice, "It's symbolic, Mom." He hadn't meant cruel, but he hadn't meant kind either. Somewhere between those 2 truths lay a cold indifference, and that cut deeper than malice ever could. Her gaze drifted back to the kitchen counter. That's when she saw it. A purse, black leather, structured, elegant in its simplicity. Linda's. Left carelessly behind in the whirl of celebration. It sat inches from the piggy bank, the contrast almost theatrical, one flimsy, one formidable. Dorothy didn't move right away. She let the sight settle, let the weight of it sink into her chest. Linda Chen, with her polished hair and polished manners, who had slipped seamlessly into Marcus's orbit, was not the type to forget something so valuable. Dorothy rose slowly, joints stiff from the day's labor, and walked to the counter. She rested her hand on the purse, feeling the supple grain beneath her palm, heavier than she expected. The zipper glinted under the kitchen light. A thought crept in, unwelcome, insistent. How careless. How very careless. She carried the purse down the hall, past the family portraits that lined the wall, Marcus as a boy, Tom in his work uniform, Christmases that had once brimmed with joy. Tonight, those smiling faces seemed to watch her, urging her forward. In the privacy of her bedroom, Dorothy set the purse on her dresser. The piggy bank sat beside it, bright pink against black leather, innocence against something that promised secrets. For the first time that night, Dorothy smiled. Dorothy hesitated only a moment before unzipping the purse. The sound was sharp in the stillness, like fabric tearing in a cathedral. Inside, order reigned: wallet, phone, pill bottle neatly arranged, tissues folded with precision. A woman's life in compartments. She opened the wallet first. Rows of credit cards gleamed, their embossed names identical: Linda Chen. Tucked behind them were bank statements, trifolded, edges crisp. Dorothy's eyes skimmed the numbers, and her pulse stuttered. 6 figures. Several accounts. Balances so large they looked unreal, like Monopoly money. Her son had taken out a second mortgage to buy a car for a woman who could purchase 10 of them without blinking. The phone buzzed in her hand, screen lighting the dark. 23 missed calls from Brian Chen. Text scrolled upward in frantic succession: Mom, where are you? Please call. The police are worried. Police. Dorothy's throat tightened. Linda had told endless stories of being a lonely widow, no family to lean on. Yet here was a son, not distant, not estranged, but desperate. She swiped through the photo gallery. Images filled the screen: family dinners, barbecues, holidays. In each, Linda occupied the center, between Marcus and Ashley, smiling as though she belonged more than Dorothy herself. Then came older images. Not family snapshots. Documents. Property records. A death certificate. Her marriage license. Even a photograph of her social security card, taken from the jewelry box upstairs. Dorothy's knees weakened. This wasn't nostalgia. It was surveillance. The grandfather clock struck, its chime heavy as a verdict. Her phone rang then, jolting her. Not Linda's, hers. She pressed it to her ear, voice steady despite her racing heart. Mrs. Williams? This is Officer Patterson with the state police. We're following up on a missing person report. A woman named Linda Chen was last seen at your residence today. Dorothy's breath caught. Missing person. A lie within a lie. She forced calm into her reply. I'm afraid I don't know that name. We did have a guest for Christmas dinner, but she left with my son. Perhaps you should check with him. After she hung up, the house seemed colder. The purse sat open on her dresser, its contents spilling secrets like a confession. For 35 years Dorothy had carried the weight of sacrifice for her son. Tonight she understood something new: someone was circling her life, studying her like prey. And if Linda Chen thought Dorothy Williams was easy prey, she was about to learn otherwise. Morning light spilled weakly through the blinds, casting pale stripes across Dorothy's kitchen. She hadn't slept. The purse sat hidden in her bedroom, its secrets gnawing at her thoughts. Every tick of the grandfather clock was another reminder: Linda was dangerous, and Marcus, her own son, was tangled in her web. When the knock came, Dorothy already knew who it was. Marcus's voice carried through the door, too cheerful, too rehearsed. Mom? Can we come in for a minute? Ashley stood beside him, eyes rimmed red as though she'd been crying. Marcus clutched a folder thick with papers. They sat at the table, the same table where Dorothy had spooned mashed potatoes and carved turkey the night before. Now it felt like a courtroom. Linda feels hurt, Marcus began, clearing his throat. She thinks that you went through her things. Dorothy folded her hands neatly in her lap. I was keeping her purse safe. I thought that was obvious. Ashley leaned forward, her voice tight. She said you asked questions about her son. About her finances. It made her uncomfortable. Dorothy tilted her head. Uncomfortable because she was caught lying? Marcus bristled. Mom, please. Linda's been like a mother to us since Dad passed. She supported us, listened when he cut himself off, but the words hung heavy. In ways you haven't. Dorothy felt the sting like a slap. Still, her voice was steady. Marcus, what exactly is in that folder? He slid it across the table. Contracts. Reverse mortgage applications. Investment proposals dressed in complicated jargon. Dorothy leafed through them, each page another nail in the coffin Linda was building for her. Where did these come from? She asked. Linda's associates. They can help you restructure your assets, make your money work harder. It's all legal. Dorothy set the papers down carefully, though her hands trembled. You think I should sell the house your father and I built, the one you grew up in, so Linda's friends can manage it? Ashley's fingers worried her wedding ring. It's just an opportunity. Dorothy met her son's eyes. Or a trap. One you both already stepped into. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator. Marcus's jaw clenched. Ashley wouldn't look at her. Dorothy rose, slow and deliberate. If Linda wants a game, then a game she shall have. But I promise you, Marcus, her voice sharpened, it won't end the way she thinks. Dorothy chose the meeting place herself, a cafe downtown, glass walls that caught the winter sun, crowded enough to give her witnesses, quiet enough to hear every word. She arrived early, ordered black coffee, and waited. Her hands rested calmly on the table, though her pulse thundered. Linda swept in 10 minutes late, draped in silk, her jewelry catching the light like warning flares. She smiled too broadly, slid into the chair opposite Dorothy, and leaned forward as if they were girlfriends sharing secrets. Dorothy, I'm so glad you came. Marcus told me you're finally ready to make smart choices with your assets. This is wonderful news. Dorothy studied her for a long moment. Funny word, assets. Most people call it a home. A life. Memories. Linda's smile flickered, but she recovered quickly. And all of that can remain yours. You'll just free up the value, make it work for you. My associates can. Dorothy lifted a hand, silencing her. From her purse, she drew a folder and slid it across the table. Linda's eyes lit up, greedy, like a child glimpsing candy. Inside were fake bank statements, each showing millions in supposed holdings. You didn't tell me you had this much, Linda whispered, voice reverent. I wanted to see what kind of offer you'd make if you thought the prize was bigger, Dorothy replied. For the first time, Linda's mask slipped. She leaned closer, voice urgent. Dorothy, with resources like this, we can move quickly. Offshore accounts, tax shelters, you could live like royalty. But timing is critical. We'd need signatures this week. Dorothy pressed a button on her phone, ending the recording she'd begun when Linda sat down. And there it is, she said softly. Fraud. Conspiracy. You've handed me everything I need. Linda froze. Then, a brittle laugh. You think anyone will believe you? A lonely old woman against me? Dorothy leaned in, her voice steady as stone. Not just me. The police have your forged documents. And your son, Brian, he'll be very interested to learn what you've been doing while he defends victims like me. For the first time, Linda's composure cracked. Her face drained of color. Dorothy gathered her purse, rose from the table, and looked down at the woman who had tried to hollow out her life. You mistook me for weak, Linda. That was your first mistake. Your last was leaving me with proof. She walked out into the winter air, every step lighter than the one before. Snow flurried sideways as Dorothy stood at Linda's doorway, clutching the folder Marcus had brought days earlier. Inside, Linda's living room gleamed with expensive taste, velvet drapes, polished oak, art that seemed chosen to impress, not to feel. Marcus and Ashley were already there, seated stiffly on the couch like schoolchildren waiting for discipline. Linda rose from her armchair, radiant in a cream blouse, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. Dorothy, I'm so glad you agreed to come. Let's finalize everything, shall we? Dorothy set the folder down on the coffee table with a deliberate thud. Yes, she said, let's. Linda spread the contracts before her, sliding a pen across the table. It's simple. Sign here, and you'll unlock resources you never dreamed of. Marcus will help manage everything. You can trust your family. Dorothy picked up the pen. Her hand hovered, trembling, the room hushed except for the faint ticking of a wall clock. She let the silence stretch until Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Then she lowered the pen, not onto the page, but flat against the paper, a blade instead of a tool. Her eyes met Linda's. I know what you've done, she said. The forged power of attorney. The appraisal behind my back. The photos of my documents. You've been circling this house like a vulture since Tom died. Ashley gasped softly. Marcus paled. Linda's smile twitched but didn't collapse. Dorothy, you're imagining things. Stress can, Dorothy cut her off. And your son, Brian. Does he know his mother runs cons on grieving families while he prosecutes men like you? How proud he must be. For the first time, Linda faltered. Her jaw tightened, her fingers curling against her silk blouse. Dorothy reached into her purse and withdrew her phone, screen glowing with the recording app. She pressed stop. Every word you just said is on here. Offshore accounts. Restructuring my assets. Promises you can't deliver. Marcus stared, stunned. Mom, you've been recording? Dorothy turned to him, her voice breaking and firm all at once. I raised you to be better than this. And I won't let her drag you any deeper. Linda lunged for the phone, but Dorothy stepped back, steady as stone. No more games, she said. Not in my house. Not with my family. The silence after was thick, final. Outside, the snow kept falling, muffling the world as if holding its breath. The weeks that followed unfolded like thawing ice, slow, uncertain, fragile. Linda was gone, swept into the system she'd once thought herself too clever to fear. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy, words Dorothy never expected to hear in connection to her family's Christmas. But the police had listened, the recordings had mattered, and the forged documents had sealed Linda's fate. Marcus came back to the house the following Sunday. No folder in his hands this time, only a paper bag with bakery rolls and a look that belonged to the boy Dorothy remembered, the boy who used to bring her dandelions in chipped glasses. Ashley followed, quieter, carrying flowers. They didn't sit like prosecutors now, they sat like children who'd lost their bearings and wanted to find home again. I was blind, Marcus said, his voice rough. You tried to warn me, and I didn't listen. Dorothy studied him for a long moment. His hair was untidy, his eyes lined. He looked older than his years, and suddenly she saw the cost of his desperation. She reached across the table and set her hand over his. What matters is you see clearly now. Ashley's eyes brimmed. We'll make this right, Dot. We'll spend our lives making it right. Dorothy nodded, but she wasn't naive enough to believe restitution erased betrayal. Still, forgiveness was not a gift for them, it was one she gave herself. She refused to live bound to anger. Later, alone, Dorothy stood in the living room. On the mantel sat the piggy bank, ridiculous and pink, no longer mocking but transformed into a reminder, never underestimate what appears small. Beside it rested a framed photograph of Tom, his eyes kind, his smile steady. Through the window, snow drifted down, softening the world in white. The house hummed with warmth, and for the first time in months, Dorothy felt its walls embrace her instead of echoing with absence. She thought of Linda in a cell, of Brian Chin testifying against his own mother. Families broke in different ways, she realized, hers had nearly been undone by greed, his by betrayal. Yet in both, love had surfaced, battered, imperfect, but alive. Dorothy exhaled, slow and certain. The battle was over. But the lesson lingered, she was not weak, not invisible, not replaceable. She was the storm no one saw coming.